Welcome to Dead Headspace. I'm your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined always by my co-host, Brendan LaFaro. Say hi, Brendan.
Hello, everybody.
And today we are joined by the creator of Repairman Jack, amongst honestly too many books to name at this point. F. Paul Wilson. Say hi, Paul.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are.
I don't know if anyone said this to you, but I love your voice. It feels like it would be like of the Rod Sterling sort of vein, where you could be the guy that introduces stories or movies and such. Did you do anything like that on the Sci-Fi Channel? I don't know all the stuff you did for that channel.
I've always thought my voice was too nasal. When I hear it, I really don't like it. You know, I got the schnoz here, and I think that adds to the nasal resonance. But no, I've never been happy about my voice. No.
Oh, and Brendan kindly corrected me. Sterling. I said Sterling. Thinking of someone else apparently. Let's just dive into our baseline question. What got you into horror?
I think I've said this before, but I think we're wired for certain things, and I've been wired for horror. I had the most prosaic upbringing, with an immigrant father who did well, a stable family, one brother, one sister, one dog, two cats, and it was just as normal as can be. And then the trailer for The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms came on TV, and I was like glued to the TV. I had to see that movie. I fell in love with that monster just from the trailer. And I would actually sit there and watch TV and flip through the 3 or 4 channels we had then, looking for that trailer to play again. And so I made my folks' life miserable until they took me to see it. So I didn't really choose it, it sort of chose me. I used to buy EC comics as a kid, and if it had a rocket ship and a dinosaur on it, I'm there. So it was one of those things.
Totally makes sense because you got into sci-fi and horror. And something really cool. This is more for the listeners that aren't aware that you grew up in Jersey City, which is only 15 minutes away from another very well-known, mainly known for his fantasy now, but also sci-fi and horror author. Also, you and him, George R. R. Martin, wrote in Analog magazine back in the 70s. I know there's more North Jersey writers, but, and this is a weird segue, but Analog magazine, I know that was your first sale, but how long were you writing before that, and how many times were you rejected, if you remember the exact amount?
Ooh, many. I wrote for years. I would say, at least a dozen rejections, short story rejections, before he finally wrote to me. Camp wrote to me and told me why he was rejecting it. And there were more rejections after that. And then finally he bought Ratman, which was my first sale. And it wasn't my first publication, but it was my first sale.
Nice. Now 12 is to me, I think I threw way more than 12 out there before I got my first acceptance. And it, it feels good, whether it's 12 or 24 or 150. Now, I have to know, you had that preview show up on TV, and it just kind of caught your attention. When you finally got to go see the movie, did it live up to expectations?
Absolutely. I was mesmerized. We went to a drive-in because it was during the polio years, and it was the summer, and movie theaters were where kids caught polio. And my folks said, "Do you want to wind up in an iron lung?" I said, "Yeah, if I can see that movie, I'll risk it." So my father took me and my brother to the Tom's River Drive-In, and I'm sitting there with just looking through that windshield at this monster, and I really felt sorry for it at the end when it died inside the roller coaster. I you know Harryhausen did such a great job with that monster that I just believed it was real.
Yeah, Harryhausen. There's something about his work that even you can look at today, and it's very, very different than the CGI we're kind of beaten over the head with today, but there's something very authentic about it, which is funny to say when it has that kind of almost like claymation stop motion appeal to it a lot of the time, but you just feel like you're never going to see anything like that again.
Well, the thing is, when those stop motion monsters first appear, you can see the jerky movements, but then your mind adjusts and smooths it out. And by the time that thing was walking through Lower Manhattan, yeah, it was fluid to me. And when it was dying and it curled in a circle, almost like a cat, and laid down and died, I mean, I just had a lump in my throat. And I just saying, that poor thing, it didn't ask to be here. It was out of its time, and we killed it. And I was on its side. Not humans. I was on the monster side.
I'm curious that you said with the stop motion, your imagination almost kind of fills in the blanks and takes over, and kind of helps the filmmakers do their job. Do you think that with today's movies, where they can pretty much make anything look like anything, that we've lost some of our imagination?
Well, it wasn't so much imagination. I mean, I like good CGI. I mean, I've always said that. I mean, way back when, I think it was 1984, 1985, Roger Corman's company optioned The Tomb, and I really had trepidation about that. It's always great, to have Roger Corman want to make your film, but
Yep.
there's also the fact that he's like the king of cheese, and I could see some guy in a rubber suit playing, the Rikashi, and the line between horror and hilarity is very narrow, and it could look stupid so easily. Fortunately, they had a terrible screenplay, and somebody stole the title, and they just gave up on it. I was sort of relieved. I walked away with the option money, and okay, fine. But I was kind of relieved because I knew in the future, I didn't know about CGI then, but I knew in the future that I had seen Star Wars, and I knew that computer animation was the way to go. Jurassic Park hadn't come out yet, which really changed the whole thing. But I knew it was heading that. I could just see it heading that way, and I'm saying in the future, we'll be able to do this. And they haven't done it.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, with the idea of filming a scene with the Rikashi in the ship hold, if you get that right, like, what a chilling scene that could be. And if you get that wrong, it almost kind of steers the atmosphere of the movie, and not in the right way. That's got to be such a strange feeling as a creator, to almost kind of have that trepidation where you're excited for the possibility for someone to take one of your characters, one of your very beloved characters, and the first story that you put them in, but also what if they do get that, what if they do kind of get the tone just completely mismatched?
It's I learned that with the Keep the hard way, that when you sign away the rights, the movie rights, they can do anything they damn well please with it. It's like selling your house. It's your beloved house. You built it, but now you've got to downsize and move out. And as soon as you move out, they paint it hot pink. And you say, that's not my house. But you're right. It's not your house. It's their house.
Yeah.
And so they can do whatever they want with it. I mean, if you're J.K. Rowling and you've got 6 of the biggest, production companies in the world bidding on it, yeah, you can start naming terms. But when Repairman Jack when the keep was sold before, the movie rights were sold before we sold the publication rights. And we were happy with it was a good deal. And any other director might have made a good movie out of it, but Michael Mann decided he wanted to make a Michael Mann movie with the title of my book on it. So, but I got the rights back. We're negotiating a new option with people who are going to do a really good job on it.
That's excellent.
That's really cool to hear. I did like how you, I think it's your website, you refer to it as visually striking and otherwise incomprehensible.
Well, that it is. I mean, most people didn't know. I mean, I remember walking out of the screening and I was saying to my wife, I was saying, well, maybe it'll be a cult film, people will appreciate, the younger generation will think it's cool. And, this young couple is in front of us and he's saying, what the hell was that all about? I think, we're screwed. But on the upside, the movie tie-in edition sold like 250,000 copies because everybody who saw it went out and bought the book and tried to figure out what the hell was going on. So, there's a silver lining to every cloud, I guess. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm very much of the mindset that yes, it would be nice if my favorite books were turned into a page-by-page adaptation, movie-wise. But at the end of the day, even if it's incomprehensible, the book is still on the shelf. The story still exists in the way it was originally told.
Yeah, that was, they used to ask Raymond Chandler, said, well, how do you feel about what they did to your book? He said, the book's up there on the shelf. They didn't do anything to it. Yeah. So that's where you have to look at it.
Yep.
And still, The Keep is still my #1 bestseller on my backlist.
That's pretty cool. You were mentioning how Michael Mann just wanted to use the title. And that reminded me of Max Brooks' World War Z. The book and the movie have nothing to do with each other. They're just the same title. And as a creator, I mean, I would probably be pretty upset about that. I know you're in negotiations. I can't talk tonight. But what are your expectations, if you can talk about any, with your work coming to, I don't know if it's a silver screen or if it's a streaming service like something like HBO or Netflix. I'm not sure which, but what do you expect?
Well, I mean, from these people, and if I said the names, you'd recognize them immediately. I trust them. I know they're going to do a good job.
That's great.
Whether it's a feature film or streaming, I don't think they know yet. But I also just signed option on Sims.
Oh,
I don't know how, nowadays with motion capture, that's very possible to do that. But they don't know, in the contract they have, this much for feature film, this much for streaming. So they don't even know what they're going to wind up doing. And that's the way, you go for the best venue that you can get. Sims has enough for, I think, a good 6-hour stream. They'll probably stretch it out. I mean, most of these streaming things are just so attenuated that it's ridiculous. But they seem to think they've got to have so many hours out there to make it worthwhile, even though the story isn't there, for that much time.
Yeah, it's kind of like how they turned The Hobbit into a trilogy. Doesn't make any damn sense.
I didn't even watch it. And when I heard it was a trilogy, it just said that's going to be so attenuated that, yeah. I really liked Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was much waste in that. And I'm trying to think. Sarah Pinborough's Behind Her Eyes was way stretched out. I mean,
I haven't seen that.
That's a great story with a killer ending. I mean, it's one of those endings that say, what? And but it just, it took 6 hours to get there. It's not a 6-hour movie. But they just stretch it out.
Yeah.
You brought up Sims, and Brennan, jump in if you want after, man. Sims, it covers the human Z, and I have not heard up until that book that was a thing, but I looked into it, and it goes back to like the 20s with that hypothetical species. What made you want to write about that?
It was like many things that the way stories start. I was just reading a thing in New York Times, and it said that chimps share 98.8% of our human DNA. I was saying, holy crap, I didn't realize it was that high.
I didn't know it's that much either.
And I was saying, so what if it's 99.6? What have we got? And I was thinking, then there's the other thing where you can copyright a genome. I say, well, there's money to be made there.
Yeah.
If you get it to the point where they can speak and understand language, then you've got yourself a slave species. And I said, thriller, science thriller. And then, it was on the back burner. And then Richard Chismar asked me if, I could do a novella for Cemetery. And I said, well, I got this idea for these, hybrid chimps. And he said, well, do it. I started out in the first novella, and I got to I said it's about 40,000 words, and I got to 40,000 words. I said, I'm not even scratching the surface here. I said, I can't do it. He said, well, do one novella after another. We'll publish them as you do them until the story's done. So it wound up to be, I think, 5 or maybe 6. I'm not sure. And then it all went into one book.
So I know it's nothing like it, but maybe it's just my dumbass brain. But were you at any point thinking about Planet of the Apes, the original film, when he came into that? Because I mean, maybe I'm stretching it, but we are talking about human race being slaves in that one. But chimps, apes, did that ever cross your mind?
No, I mean, I wanted to short circuit that right away, and that because I knew that would be the first thing people would say.
Okay.
And so I said, what about a revolt? And I said, no, that's bred out of them. I mean, when you can control genes like that, you could breed that. You could keep. I shouldn't say bred out of them. It's just not there. You just take that and you make them very docile, and you make them very compliant, and so that rebellion is not in the cards. But it starts off with that one little, men's room attendant coming up to Patrick, who's an attorney, and saying, we'd like to start a union. And so, I mean, that's not rebellion, but in a sense it is rebellion, but it's not violent. They're not looking to break out, but they're trying to better themselves. And he says, it's ridiculous. But then he gets pissed off at the club. It's a country club. He gets pissed off at the club and he says, well, God damn it. Let me see what I can do. And I talked to a labor relations attorney and said, how can I make this work in court? And he says, how can I get them declared human? He said, you can't, but you can maybe have them declared persons. And there's a difference.
Oh, yeah, that person does not cover only humans. That's a good point.
And so that's what I did. And the club thought they had a lock because this was a very, conservative judge. And, he wasn't going to tolerate any of this. But then he surprised them and said, well, I go by the law, and the law doesn't say there's anything that these things can't be human. They can't be persons. And so now everything starts to change. And I had myself a story. So that's the way these things work out. Just one line in the Times. That's.
Yeah, I mean, real life spawns a lot of great stuff. Going back to Game of Thrones, I mean, George R. R. Martin's a huge fan of your European history, and I know the War of the Roses was what spawned a lot of the Game of Thrones timeline. But I want to jump back about the possibility of not only this, but I was watching this video of a European-based company that they have these prosthetics. They're realistic looking, and it's for legs, arms, hands, and feet. And the way they work is that a part of the end of the prosthetic connects to something that ends up connected to your brain. So your brain's a controller. And I know that we have 3D printers, and I like looking at near futuristic stuff just for fun. And there was talks of organs to be printed in our lifetime. I don't think it's impossible to think that. I mean, they are smart. You could even say that about dolphins or pigs. Do you think it's realistic to say that we could explore that being our reality one day, that chimps or other species could end up being what your book is?
Oh, I mean, the ethical questions are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're already getting organs out of pigs, and I think that's going to continue because, I mean, that's been in the making for a long time of hybrid, transgenic organs with no histoincompatibilities, which allows for easier, transplants and less, fighting rejection. But I think if you could, and I don't think it's 3D printing of an organ. I don't think it's in the near future, but I certainly think it's in the future. I mean, the kidney is so complex. When you look at the nephron and how complex it is and how many of them there are in a kidney, you have to say, well, that's one hell of a 3D printing job. But I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but I have heard that we only know so much of how our brain could actually, the capacity of it, the power behind our brain, and that kind of that the brain itself kind of scares me. I mean, I feel like there's so much, like the human race. We always think we know so much, and then you find out more, and it's like, well, we knew pretty much nothing about this topic.
The thing is, I mean, one of the things, talk about, the human race. How many other races are there like us out there? It's it's looking like there are fewer and fewer than we thought.
Really?
And because there are so many hurdles to get through. I mean, sure, there's a lot of planets out there. I mean, the estimates for our galaxy alone are between, they go between 100 million and 400 million stars. Maybe, sorry, 100 billion and 400 billion stars. Because, there comes the question, what is a star? Is a brown dwarf a star? Or, but the thing is, most of the stars are, either red giants or red dwarfs. And you just can't have a planet hospitable to life around one of them because they're so unstable. They flare and then they go down, and then they flare and they go down. So, how many planets are in a Goldilocks zone? Rocky planets like ours in a Goldilocks zone around a stable like yellow star like we have. How many of them are there? And the thing is, you've got to have an iron core, because the iron core has to be liquid and it has to keep moving in there and create the magnetosphere, which keeps all that horrendous radiation from the star from hitting us and frying our DNA. So, I mean, there's so many variables. And I mean, here's something that blew my mind. You know what a mitochondria is?
Mitochondria. Yeah.
Powerhouse of the cell, sir.
Exactly what it's called. It doesn't have the same DNA as the cell. And the supposition is, and it's been accepted pretty much, is that is a bacterium that was ingested but not digested. And it formed this endosymbiosis where it produces this ATP, which allows eukaryotic cells to do all these other things and start to expand and multiply. And how the hell does that happen? That has to be a cosmic accident. That it ingested the bacterium, didn't digest it, so it became part of the cell. I mean, that to me is amazing.
Absolutely. It's something along those lines of complexities beyond like kind of what some of us might know or see is working at a wastewater treatment plant, and in the laboratory, you can, if you look inside the microscope, it's a whole cellular world, and it's crazy. It's the things that allow us to do what we do, but we can't see it, meaning clean the water. And it shoots where I'm right near Atlantic City. It shoots out into the Atlantic Ocean. But without those microscopic creatures, bugs, we can't break down the product. I don't know if you would, how you would without them, but it's just really, it's bizarre, man. Like you're talking about the cosmic side of things. I'm talking about the microscopic side of things. And yeah, I don't know what the number would be, but it does seem like it's kind of like a luck, 1 in a million sort of deal, or maybe an nth of that to make all this happen.
Well, there's a formula out there that says that, and it's a really intimidating formula. I forgot the name of it. But you plug everything in, and there's like 20 possibility of 20 other civilizations that reached our level. And it's but that works well with cosmic horror, because you always say, well, why is Earth so important? Why are humans so important? Why do they spend, well, not when you think of it that way, there aren't that many sentient sapient races that they can toy with. So we suddenly become like, oh, hey, there's an ant farm. Let's play. So
that's why Cthulhu stays here.
Yeah. There's just not that many ant farms, so I'm gonna play with this one.
That's right. Yeah. This is mine.
Do you like by any chance, do you like Neil deGrasse Tyson? He's my favorite astrophysicist.
Who?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes, I do. I heard him talk about, someone said, what about UFOs? And he did a 10 minutes that was just brilliant.
He blows my mind every time he talks.
But the thing that, I really recently read a quote by him, and it bothered me. He said something to the effect that, it doesn't matter what you think, or science doesn't care what you think or believe. It remains true, or it remain, it doesn't change. I wish I could, but the thing was, in my experience, science isn't always to be trusted. Science is a process. It is not a bunch of facts. So science is how you get to the truth. Science isn't necessarily the truth. Science is on the way to the truth. Sometimes, it's never, when they say the science is settled, then you're talking to an asshole, because science is, it's just waiting for the next question, or the next change in data, or the next improvement in instruments. I mean, Ptolemy had a model of a geocentric universe with 7 rings around it. It was geocentric, and it worked for 1,500 years. People used it successfully for 1,500 years, until Galileo and Copernicus came along with better instruments. They could see better than Ptolemy ever could back when, when Christ was born or before. So they could see better, and they said, no, it's actually, solar centric. And, the church shut them down and stuff like that, but they had to agree. But the thing is, they had better equipment. And like when I was researching Sims, I learned genetics in medical school. That's in the 70s. When I was researching Sims around 2002, I had to learn everything again, because everything had changed. Everything I had been taught in the 70s was pretty much said it's wrong. And there's all this junk, they call it junk DNA, but it's really non-coding DNA. But there's all this other stuff. They found DNA from daffodils in us, and from butterflies. I mean, it's so obvious that, the evolution was going on. But the thing is, we never knew any of this stuff back when I was learning it. So I had to, have to give myself a course again. But the thing is, that was the science at the time, and that was accepted. But the thing is, but we now know that it's much more complicated than that.
So, I know it's only 50 years.
Yeah. So don't trust, science 100%. Just say that this is our best idea of what's going on with the tools we have at the time. And the thing to really avoid is the priest scientists, because they, they're human just like us. They have agendas just like us.
Yeah.
And science, the data can be skewed. And chaos theory has shown that, that complex systems are very sensitive to initial conditions. And so, when they start giving you these predictions about what it's going to be like in 2050, that's bullshit. It may be true, but most likely it is not, because, their initial conditions here they can't predict where a hurricane's going to go.
Right. I was going to say, just look at the Weather Channel to.
Yeah. They can't predict where a hurricane's going to go, and that's all chaos theory. That little changes in the stuff you put in the beginning of the program, can go this way and they can go that way, depending on sometimes the 5th or 6th decimal point. So, and the original founder of chaos theory, that's what he found out when he was running a weather program. He just cut down a few thousands off the formula, and he got a completely different prediction.
That is
So
chaotic. Sorry to kill that train of
No,
thought.
I was just thinking. I think that's so incredibly true. Is that I can understand wanting to present science as something that's fixed, that's so based on like cement fact, but it's an evolving process, and I think you need look no further than the last 2 years, and just the way that we started studying this virus and rolling out different measures, whether it was just keeping distance and then adding masks and then vaccines. And you've got you got the detractors that are saying, oh, I thought we were supposed to be fine if we just stay away from people. Oh, I thought masks were the be all end all. But it's that constant evolution. It's like we weren't at a point where we knew everything. We're constantly learning more because we're constantly looking at it from different perspectives and different lenses, and trying to understand better, as opposed to just creating a cement idea and working towards that.
You're getting more data, and the more as more data comes in, scientists are very happy to change. And we say, oh, okay, that's the way it is. All right, now we gotta look at it this way. It's just like anthropology. They find a new species that's 1,000,000 years older than what we thought was the oldest species. And do they say, no, that's wrong? The science is settled. No, they don't say. They say, okay, now we have to go make a new chart and figure out and add this into it. Coronavirus, there had been some research on it earlier, but nobody was an expert on it. And we learned as we went along, the spike proteins and everything. It was a constant learning process. I never really got mad at anybody for being wrong, because they were probably telling us the best they knew at the time, and sometimes it was very damaging, some of their solutions, but they probably thought that was the way to solve the problem. So I'll give somebody the benefit of the doubt, but there were some high priests that were developed during that time, which you got to take with a grain of salt. They're not they're just spewing out and regurgitating what they have gotten from other researchers. So
yeah, definitely. You know what? This is a good segue to jump into one of your books, Virgin. I would really like to know, and I promise I won't ask about any other book in this way, but how did you come to write that one? Because for me, growing up as a Roman Catholic, I'll write about anything, but I gotta be honest, in the back of my mind, I'd be like, Jesus is watching, don't F this up.
Well, I think one of the things that triggered it was that I was, the millennium was coming, and I was, someone wanted me to write, someone, via my agent, wanted me to write a millennial series of novels and put out one a month here in the last year of, before the millennium, and, start writing them years before. And I started researching it, and I determined that, well, really, Christ was probably born in 4 years before everybody thinks he was. And so that the true, millennium would be 1996. And I was saying, that's interesting. And then I thought, well, how can I outlined something and they didn't like it, and I didn't like it. And I was glad that they didn't use it, because I didn't want to write all those books. Unless they offered me a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it did trigger the thing. And I was saying, Mary was supposed to have been assumed into heaven, body, and soul. And I'm saying it's obvious reasons for that, so people didn't go hunting for her body for relics, and start, tearing it apart. And, I'm saying, but, what if she, let's just say that, she didn't. Now, there was a Mary.
Yeah.
I mean, I was raised a Catholic, but by the time I was 18, the Jesuits had taught me how to question my way out of it.
Sorry to cut you off, but that sound was perfect. If you were to continue, it would have sounded like a censorship.
That sounds like somebody's computer. Email, you got mail. So I was just saying, so the Christians would have hidden her body. And I'm saying, and in my mind, I was saying, who would you get to guard it like forever? And I was thinking, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Judas, because if you go by the mythology, the resurrection and the salvation of humanity never would have taken place if he hadn't betrayed Christ.
Oh man, I never thought. Jesus Christ, I never thought of that.
Yes, so he somehow he got screwed. He sort of had to do this. It was necessary for him to do this, and he got screwed.
Yeah,
and so it was a betrayal, but the thing is, it was necessary. And he didn't hang himself. He got stuck with guarding the body. And so I said, oh, what a setup. And then someone steals the body and he's got to get it back. And I just said, okay, I got to do this.
Yeah,
I got to write this book. So, that's where it came from. But I say, I just had that soft spot in my head for Judas. He was a tool, and he got used and he got screwed. And I'm just saying, well, let's see if I can get him some redemption here.
Yeah, it would be pretty interesting to hear other sides of the story. I mean, all I ever knew about him was that he betrayed Jesus, and I would have really found it interesting to hear a little bit of backstory about that. And I don't know, there's just like kind of one side to the story. It's black and white, good and evil, and that's just not real life then or now. I mean, Mary might have been a little bit of a drinker. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Brennan, do you have anything to add to this, sir?
Any more blasphemy to add? No, I think that's an incredibly interesting way to look at it, because we do paint Judas as the villain, and it's just he's a patsy. We know you're going to betray us. You're preordained to do it. You pretty much essentially you have been fated to do this. Do you really have any the idea of did he have the agency really, or was it just something that was always going to happen? Is such an interesting question to look at in regards to the entire mythology. And I'm pretty much just repeating what you just said, so I'm going to take us in a new direction. We mentioned earlier that your first sale was in 1970 to Analog, and at the time you were in med school. And I mean, to me, all I can think is what dedication to be in med school and still writing to try and get something published, because you're not going to be rolling in time there. So I wonder, what was the beginning of your writing journey like, while you're going to school?
I started writing in college with a point of selling one story, and then I would be a published writer. And then I would be a dilettante from then on and write a little story here, story there, and but they kept rejecting him, like Pavlov's dogs. Just, here's a Wilson story, rejected. And by the time, so I just kept writing. I said, I'm just going to sell that one story, and I think Ratman was 7,500 words. You know, I wrote it in bits and pieces. You know, I wrote it in freehand, and then I typed it up on my Olympia portable. And so I just, as another one I sent into John Campbell, figuring it's going to be rejected. And then I got a check back. Yeah. So $350 or something like that, $362 or whatever, which in 1970 money is like 2,500, really.
I'd be stoked to get that today.
I was gonna say,
they're still paying 6 cents a word on the better markets. Yeah. So it wasn't my first published because Starling Mystery Stories accepted a story that Campbell had rejected. And that came out first. And then a month or two later, that came out, and then a month or two later, Ratman came out. But that first story, I don't know, it was called The Cleaning Machine, which is a very exciting name, but it was pirated, and which I didn't know at the time. But years later, I was at a signing and somebody came up with this, I think it was called Galaxy Mission or something like that. It was like a black and white, eerie, creepy type of magazine. And they said, would you sign this? I said, well, why? I don't have a story. And they said, yeah, you do. And I said, no, I don't. He said, yeah, you do. He opened it up, and there was this thing called The Machine by F. Paul Wilson. And that was the cleaning machine. And they had pirated it. It was the same company, but they had pirated it for this because it had something to do with mailing privileges if you had to have some prose in it. So I signed it, but so I didn't get paid for either one.
Yeah, it's messed up, man.
Starling Mystery Stories folded with the publication of The Cleaning Machine. I like to say there's no connection. And then it was pirated, and I was not paid for that either. So published twice, paid none.
Oh my God.
quite the start. But if Patrick didn't jump in, I was going to with
go ahead.
What you got paid for the 300 and whatever it was. I mean, I just sold a story last week for less than that at professional rates. So boy, we're not going in the right direction here.
No, it's been 50 years, and yeah, but it's very hard to make things work like this. I mean, Analog had Condé Nast behind them, so they didn't have to make a huge profit, but they did have to remain, I mean, they're still publishing, but different companies. They've been sold off a couple of times, but if you can't write short stories for the money, you got to write it because you want to write it, and the money is a nice lagniappe, but it's not. It's not why you do it, because you can't make a living writing short stories.
No, you can pay a bill every couple of months, which is nice.
Yeah. Yes.
So let's talk writing novels. I know it wasn't your first, but I want to talk about Repairman Jack. Now, when you created this character, did you have any idea that this was going to be somebody you revisited over and over and over again?
When I finished The Tomb, I left him dying for a good reason, because I knew he was a series character, and I knew I didn't want to write a series. So, because I knew it would take over my career, and I had The Touch already written in my head. I had Black Wind forming. And so I was just saying, I don't want to do this at this point in my career. And so I left him dying. And at that time, there was no internet, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook. So, people had to get in touch with me through the publisher or my agent. Well, they got to me through the publisher, and then some of the publishers sent it to my agent, who sent it to me. So it was a long time sometimes before I got the letter. But right away, that my publisher, Berkeley wanted another Repairman Jack. I said no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do the Touch. But I'm trying to think. I guess, yeah, it was due to Roger Corman and his Concord films and their terrible script, and the fact that they weren't going to make it. Fred Olden Ray stole the title of Tomb for one of his crappy pieces of crap movies. And so Roger Corman said, we don't have the title and we have a lousy script, I'm not going to do it. But I would so in a last ditch effort, I wrote a script, and I put all this action in it and everything. And it was, I sent it to them and they never even replied. But the thing is, I had all this great stuff in there.
Oh my God.
And so I said, I got to protect it some way. So I wrote A Day in the Life with all the stuff I had put into the script that wasn't, from the Tomb, all the new stuff. So, and Ed Gorman was looking for a story for Stalkers. And I said, I got a Repairman Jack. He said, give it to me. And so I sent it to him. And so that to me, it copyrighted it, it protected it. And then later, I was a guest of honor at the World Fantasy Convention, and they wanted a story for the program book from the guest of honor. And I said, and Phyllis Weinberg, Bob Weinberg was running the convention, and Phyllis was his wife. She was a Repairman Jack fan, and she said, please make a Repairman Jack. So I did The Last Rakash. And so, there were bits and pieces of Jack as we're going on, but it was no commitment until 1997, I guess, when I needed to get out of this medical thriller contract because I was sick of them. And I did this high-tech thriller idea. I said, Jack's perfect, called it Legacies, and it sold like crazy. And so they said, do another Repairman Jack. So I did one more. I said, I'll do one more. I'll do Conspiracies. And I had such fun with Conspiracies that I said, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to commit to a series. And so the thing I had feared in 1984 that he would take over my writing career happened. So just later.
How many books are you up to now?
Geez, I don't know. 24 maybe. I'm done. Basically, I just don't have any more to add really to his opus, as it were. I did the Last Christmas was a plug-in. I had an idea for the story and I plugged it into the timeline. But it just, I wanted to go out on a high note with Jack. And I think I did. And it's not, I just don't want to run him into the ground. I mean, Robert Parker Spencer was one of my favorite characters ever, but after 12 books, he just started repeating himself. And, I just swore I would never do that.
It's like Lee Chow with Jack Reacher. I know he's past 20 as well.
Yeah, well, he now has his brother writing him. Yeah, I told Lee I was stopping Repairman Jack, and he said, why on earth would you do that? I said, well, I think, I peaked, and I want to go out at the peak. So.
What was his advice? Did he give advice, actually? I'm assuming he did.
No, he just said, why would you, it wouldn't be something he would do. But, he understood. gave me a great blurb for the final books.
That's really cool.
He's a sweet guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, I've heard him talk in interviews. He seems just like really kind of low talking, calm, just really nice presence about him.
He's very generous, good person. So
it's really cool. And I thought, now funny's not the right word, but that's all I could think about. But how Tom Cruise, I saw the first Jack Reacher. I wouldn't expect him to be Jack Reacher, is all I would say about that. I liked it. I just did not expect Tom Cruise to portray him.
No, I think they were good movies.
They were fun.
He just wasn't Jack Reacher. The new guy. Have you seen the new series?
I know it exists,
but I heard they got it a little closer this time.
This guy he's imposing, like you expect Reacher to be. He's a little bit beefier.
I've seen the picture of him. He definitely. I wouldn't want to piss him off.
Expected him to be. I mean, this is a guy who spends his life on the road, and the actor looks like someone who spends his life in the gym. But other than that, it's like he is imposing, and the difference between my Jack, who preceded Reacher, and Reacher is that Reacher is much more confrontational, whereas my guy is like, let's you and him fight, okay? So
that would be funny if your Jacks fought each other.
Well, people have been suggesting it for years, but I don't want to go there.
I'm just trying to think of the logistics of that. Sorry, Brennan, go ahead.
You go ahead and you think. So I mean, obviously, I can understand, not, wanting to kind of mine your ideas and not get tied to one character. But obviously, you've written 24 books. Jack is special to you. So what is it about him, that kind of made you decide to, besides audience and publisher, trying to think how to phrase this. Basically, just what kind of endears him to you?
I just like the fact that he's not a showboat. His whole idea is to be invisible, which is sort of the way my writing style. It's sort of transparent. He wants to be able to fix these situations. He has this sense of justice, and but he also wants to earn a living. So you have to pay him. But the thing is, he's not going to bull in there and throw people out the window of the bar and so on. I like because he's much more cerebral. He thinks the situation through and says, how can I hoist him on his own petard? He analyzed. I like him because he analyzes the situation and says, all right, now how can we make this work where nobody's going to know that I had anything to do with this? But how can I screw this guy? And that's that those I love working out those little fixes and or big fixes. Every once in a while, though, you do push him too far, and like in Crossroads was so dark that I had to write, a cozy mystery after that, because just to cleanse my palate, and because he Jack, sort of went off the rails and, did some stuff that he doesn't usually do, but you just pushed him, he's one of those guys, you just don't push too far.
One detail that really stuck out to me is just the, you think of these like action hero, Alex Cross, Jack Reacher types, and they seem kind of like larger than life, and just like specimens almost. And one thing I liked about Repairman Jack is just the way he always gets in his rooftop exercises, but damn it, he doesn't want to. And just, that just kind of small detail of just relatability that, we can all look at this guy and be like, oh man, this guy's good at what he does. And I wouldn't want to mess with him, but I also understand him.
Well, that's me, because I'm lazy as can be. And I used to go and work out regularly, and I hated it, every minute of it, but I knew it was good for my body. And then, I've gotten to the point now where I'm saying, fuck it. I've gotten this far, so maybe I'll go down and do the recumbent bike a little, or I'll walk around the block or something, but, and Jack's, and Jack is not a driven person in that sense, in personal body perfection. But he knows he has to keep his reflexes, tight, and he knows he has to, be in shape, but doesn't mean he likes doing it.
That's a good point.
Again, relatable.
Yeah. I'd like to switch gears and go to interest of the two of ours. You're in mine. I can't remember if Brennan likes this, but Lovecraft. I got into him when I started to fall back in love with reading, and my wife is responsible for that. So it was like Lovecraft and King were the two for me in my young adulthood when I got back into reading and writing. So I'll end my love for those guys there, and I want to pick up with yours. What got you into Lovecraft?
Well, the thing is, I read The Thing on the Doorstep when I was 13. It was in a collection called Macabre, and it blew my mind. I said, what the hell is this? This is the craziest thing I've ever read. Who's this guy Lovecraft, and where can I find more of him? But, the person probably had the most effect on my writing is Matheson.
Oh, okay.
That cleaner sort of writing,
Hmm.
Contemporary settings, and this vivid imagination. Lovecraft really influenced the context of a lot of my writing. His cosmic horror, the way, Matheson really was affected by him, even though he probably didn't show it. But the fact that Lovecraft introduced materialism into horror. He made the chain rattling ghost, moaning ghost, a thing of the past. There's no Jacob Marley's in a Lovecraft story. And so, Matheson, picked that up, but Matheson really was not into cosmic horror. I was into cosmic horror because of Lovecraft, but I mixed the two of them. I took the Lovecraft cosmic horror and the Matheson contemporary sensibility, and put them together. So those are the two shoulders that I stand on. I can't say I did this consciously. I just happened to, one stuck in my brain, this part, and one stuck on the right side of my brain, one stuck on the left side of my brain, and in the middle came out, Wilson. So, and when I got the Grand Master from the horror writers, that's the or Life Achievement, whatever, Richard Matheson was in the audience, and I thanked him, and I said I was standing on his shoulders.
That's awesome. I love Matheson as well. Ronald Kelly, a friend of Brennan and mine, and a returning guest often on the show. He is also a big Matheson fan. Matheson and Bradbury, those two really, I mean, without them, you could say that they're a continuation of Lovecraft. I think in both of their works, there's some evidence of that. But without them, I think there's a lot of us that wouldn't be formed. I don't think Stephen King would get a lot of what he has today either. So those are guys I love talking about. Is there have you happened to read the Beerless Warriors? I think it was by Matheson, World War II novel.
No, I didn't read his straighter fiction,
Okay.
in time and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
the three Shock collections, Third from the Sun, Born a Man and Woman was one of the most wrenching stories I've ever read. And I did a story called Faces, which I realized later on was really the child in Born a Man and Woman grown up. I hadn't done that consciously, but when I look back, I can say, yeah, subconsciously, that's what I did. So I owe a lot to Matheson.
That's really cool. Brennan, I want you to take over because my segue is not smooth. So go ahead. Buddy.
Okay.
Let's smooth that.
So, Paul, you mentioned that you spent a lot of time in the 90s writing medical thrillers, and then you had to write 22 more Repairman Jack novels just to get away from that. And that kind of times up nicely with, a lot of people we've talked to will say that horror kind of died a slow, painful death in the 1990s. And I think that you could easily make the argument that in the early 2000s, it really kind of came back with a vengeance. So I was wondering if we could have your take on the early 2000s to modern times resurgence of horror.
Yeah, I know. It took a long time coming back because it wasn't really called horror. There was a lot of stuff sneaking in there that was horror, but they weren't calling it horror. Horror became a dirty word because, I mean, I went into medical thrillers because, like in 1989 or so, I wrote Reborn. They shipped a huge number of copies, and then a huge number of copies came back, and then same with Reprisal, and then Night World. And I said, okay, the sun is setting on this. I'm saying I had this idea for a medical thriller, actually a medical school thriller. I called it the Ingram.
That's a cool name.
It was the name of the school. And I wrote it under a different name as Colin Andrews. And my agent said, I told my agent, I said, I want you to sell this as by Colin Andrews. First of all, because if they see my name, they'll think it's a horror novel. It's not. I want to judge just as it is. And the second thing is, I want a chance of being on the top shelf because I was tired of being on the bottom shelf. So he said, I'm going to take it to Frankfurt. I'm going to try to, I'm going to test it out over there. So, he calls me and says, the Italians have just offered 40 million lira for it. I said, I'm rich, right? He said, no, not really. Not with the exchange rate. But he said, that's a good start. And then he created a feeding frenzy in Frankfurt. And so by the time I get over here, the publishers were ravenous for it. And I wound up with my first 7-figure deal. So quitting horror was a good thing for me.
I guess so.
So, and then I got multi medical thriller contract. And by the time I had done the third one, I was just saying, I'm done with, heroic internists. And that's when I did Legacies and brought Jack back. But Jack was mostly marketed as a thriller type of thing, even though there were definitely cosmic horror elements, running through. He had monsters they brought back to Rakashi and stuff like that. I mean, it had all sorts of weird stuff going on. I really wasn't paying much attention to the horror market then, because I was doing young adult Jack novels in the early 2000s. I had done Midnight Mass in like 1990 or something, and the novella, and then I did an extra novelette for Al Sarantonio's 9.99, and then Marty Greenberg, wanted me to do another vampire thing. So I did these 3 vampire things. They're all linked in the same world where it's a vampire apocalypse. And so Richard Chismore asked me, he said, one of these things where he says, "Have you got anything?" I said, "Well, I've got, these vampire things. I can do that into a novel. I got the start, and I can easily do it into a novel because I got, a jumping off place." He said, "We'll do it. We'll publish it." And so I happened to mention to David Hartwell, that I was doing this vampire novel for Cemetery Dance. And he said, whoa, wait a minute. He said, "We get first look at your next book. It's in your contract." I said, "Oh yeah, it is." So I showed it to him. He said, "We want this." So Richard got to do the limited, and Tor did the trade. So that was definitely horror. I mean, that's as much horror as you can get.
Yeah.
And so, but otherwise, I wasn't paying that much attention to it because I was involved with Repairman Jack. He had to deliver a novel every fall, and so
Oh my god! Oh my god!
So, you're plugging away during the year, and so I can't say I was keeping track. I was really in here.
I don't know how you wouldn't be. Otherwise, how do you keep up with that, man? Like one book a year, but like I'm sure there's other. That's not all you're doing, I'm sure.
Well, I was doing 2 when I was doing the young adult.
Okay.
But they were like 65,000 words, so they weren't, like a full 110,000 word. They were like half the length of a adult novel, but it still had to crank it out, but they were fun. I mean, they were. I can't say I felt stressed. I just felt absolutely, gifted to be able to do that. Just it was a gift.
It's a sweet gig.
Yeah.
I'd like to jump ahead to Stokercon. I know you mentioned off air that you're heading there. It's in Colorado this year, right?
Denver.
Yeah. Okay. Denver. What would someone that hasn't been there, me, Brennan, or any other listener, what is Stokercon like? What's the attraction to that convention?
Well, it's usually a who's who of horror. You won't see Stephen King there. You used to see Peter Straub, but Pete's infirm now, so he won't be going. But a lot of times, I am hoping the Brits come back because they have been able to come to U.S. conventions because of COVID, but now that's all opened up. So I'm hoping Steve Jones, and his gang show up. hopefully Michael Marshall Smith. He doesn't have far to come from, Santa Barbara, and it'll be Brian Keene, and there's so many other, Tom Montaglione and I will be there. Just about anybody who's anybody should be there.
I know Robert McCammon was there a few years ago too.
Yeah,
that's pretty
yeah.
cool.
I don't know if he'll be there this year. But I've known him for forever. Basically it's a family, and you can come in there and it's very accepting. It's not cliquey at all. I mean, you hang around the bar and you can come up to anybody you want and just say hi, I like your work, and get into a conversation with them. It's not it's not standoffish at all.
Yeah, that's really cool.
We've all been there. I remember going to conventions and with great trepidations going up to Theodore Sturgeon and said, "Would you sign my book?" Sure. It's just very few are, every once in a while there's an asshole, but right now they're few and far between.
That's good. Robert McCammon, man, I really wish that he would be a little bit more open on social media. I know Hunter Goatley's the guy that runs this page. I'm not really asking you a question, I guess, because I'm not asking you to speak for him, but I'm just throwing that out there. I wish that he would talk. I'd love to know what he's thinking. I mean, he's got so many wonderful books. I've noticed that with some authors.
I don't mind being out there, but some people they don't. Rick in person is a very gregarious guy. But I just don't think he liked. Maybe I can't speak for him, but I guess he doesn't like to interact. I mean, let's face it, Twitter can be a nasty place.
Yes.
I mean, there are freaking psychos that seem to inhabit the place, and you say something wrong, and all the NPCs come out with their little program responses, and it's it's disgusting. I really hate it. So I'm very circumspect in what I say out there.
Man, I've had some people go at me, and at a convention, I know one of them was like 5 feet away. I didn't give a shit. I don't care. I don't know that person. That they're not a friend, and didn't say anything to my face. And that's how I assume most of them are. It's just they're behind the keyboard.
You're very brave at the keyboard.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, like the tech. I've said this a few times, but like the technology we have. Come on, can't we be smart enough to be like, how can we better ourselves instead of go after each other every damn day?
You're an idealist.
Yeah, I told you from the beginning, I got a dumbass brain. Brennan, take over.
I just think that you and just because we're talking about him, somebody like Robert McCammon, when you were writing your initial books, you didn't have to have a social media presence. There is no social media, and no. You guys did wonderful for yourselves. So I could imagine the trepidation of not wanting to get involved with it because, to a degree, you don't need to. Unfortunately, a newer author doesn't really have that. There are contracts nowadays where publishers won't sign you for a book if you don't have a social media presence. There are some agents who won't look at your book if you don't have a certain number of followers. It's all kind of absurd if you think too long and hard about it.
Now, I've always wanted to engage with my readers. I even put a post office box in the back of, I think it was Reprisal or Reborn. And that's when I started getting letters directly from the readers rather than have to go through the publisher. And then that's when I started my newsletter, because then I accumulated all these names and I would send them a newsletter. So by mail, stamp every one of them, and but it was just instinct on my part, and just that I like engaging, with readers. So that just me. But I don't think being topical is necessarily wise or even wanted. I mean, Stephen King's out there regurgitating MSNBC. I mean, really, virtue signaling.
I'm not disagreeing.
What does he have to virtue signal for?
I don't even think he needs a social media. He doesn't, man. He's like the most successful author ever.
Yes.
Yeah, he'll sell some books without it.
Yeah. So I mean, but the thing is, if you go, I just unfollow people because they're not saying anything. They're not surprising me. I just heard that on CNN. I don't need to hear it from you.
Yeah.
Can I have an original thought, please?
Plus, the thing is, I don't think a lot of them probably will remember what they were so mad about 2 days ago because they're mad about something else. Yeah. I got friends like that, and I just I unfollow them or mute them. I just can't. It's too much, man.
I do applaud you, Paul, though, sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to cut you off. I do applaud you for keeping that social media presence in order to engage with readers. Because I think that is, we're talking about the negatives of social media, and that's such a positive, is to be able to, like you said, it really struck me when you said you were able to thank Richard Matheson for his influence on you. To be able to, pick up my phone right now and tell a writer I admire that a piece of their work really struck me. And, just have that dialogue, have that conversation. And I mean, even to the point where we were able to speak with Peter Straub last year, and it was because we interacted with him on social media and invited him on. Otherwise, that episode probably never happens. So I think it is really a benefit to it to be able to have that engagement with authors whose work is very meaningful to you.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had it, I wish I could have engaged with Bradbury, and I mean, I never emulated Bradbury, but he was certainly a nice guy. Or Matheson or Bob Bloch. I mean, Bob Bloch used to send me postcards all the time. I mean, that was how he communicated, was with postcards. He was a great guy, but this is all before social media, where the immediacy is gone. I mean, I did an article in Science Fiction Review where I bemoaned. The title was "Look What They've Done to My Songma," and it was about my reactions to the movie at the Keep. And and Bob Bloch wrote me a postcard and said, "Yeah, well, that's what they did to your book. Imagine when they do the same thing to your screenplay." So,
in all fairness, at least they got Psycho right, or at least to me. I don't know how he feels about it.
Oh, I mean, it made his career. It made him from a mid-list author, screenwriter to a household name.
And you know what?
Robert Psycho Bloch, remember that?
Same thing could be said about Stephen King. If it wasn't for Carrie, Brian De Palma's Carrie, I'm willing to bet that single thing accelerated his career tremendously, because the movie just does it. It captures a whole new audience.
Yes. And what happens when you have a successful movie is that everybody says, what else you got? And he had Salem's Lot, which was done into a TV miniseries.
Yep.
And then that was a big hit. And all of a sudden, there's a stand and there's, so blah, 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 blah. So, and he was, the horror was rising, and, he was the most recognizable person in the field at that time. Blatty and couldn't follow up. And Ira Loving, really couldn't follow up. But Steve was cranking them out. Bang, 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 bang. You want material? Here you go. And so he was the movie producer's dream. And and a lot of his stuff is so visual that it just the adaptations were, and then you got Kubrick doing your movie, even though he did a lousy movie.
It's still Kubrick, yeah.
It's Kubrick.
I mean, and that gives you the imprimatur, and it was successful. It sold a lot of tickets, even though he hated it. I hated it, but it sold a lot of tickets, and that's all that matters in Hollywood,
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the Keep had been successful, I'd be in a different place now. But it was such a flop. It lasted 2 weeks. It lost, a ton of money.
Damn you, Michael Mann. Said, damn you, Michael Mann.
Well, Michael Mann had to go to TV, which was, but lucky for him, he turned that around and put it into his advantage. I mean, let's face it, the guy's got a great visual sense. I mean, there's no question about that. And Miami Vice was beautiful to look at, just like the Keep was beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
But Miami Vice actually made sense. But
all right, now we're gonna jump into the what are you reading portion of the episode. So Paul, what are you currently reading?
What am I reading? Jeez. I'm reading Sean M. McGuire's, is it Middle Group? See, I read on a Kindle 3, and it doesn't have the title on the top, on the top of each page.
You get to see it at the beginning, and that's it.
Yes, I like it because the battery lasts forever.
Nice.
But I really like Sean M. McGuire's writing. She's got such an imagination, and her Lost Children series is wonderful. This I'm just maybe 20% into, so I can't say if it's wonderful yet, but I really like her stuff. Martha Wells, her Murderbot Diaries. God, if you haven't read those, you've got to get them. They are science fiction, but they are wonderful.
Murder. Did you say Murderbot?
Murderbot Diaries.
That's a cool name.
And Scalzi's last trilogy. Again, don't ask me the name. But his last trilogy was really good. I really liked it.
Nice.
Who else have I read recently? I've read some people you've never heard of because it's their first novel and they sent it to me. So, here I just finished this. It's called Terra Peak. It's got a horrible cover, really stupid cover, but it's really it's a good book. It's a good.
You are not incorrect.
Don't judge it by its cover.
Yeah,
don't judge it by its cover.
Yeah, it's not a great cover.
Like that. Who else have I read recently that I really like?
That would be a great blurb by you. Stupid cover.
Well, it is. Look at me. Come on, the mountain's got
Oh, he's bringing it back.
He's looking at it. Look at that. Really? What do you
It's got to
think?
be the front cover blurb too. You can't put that inside.
Oh God! Now
Right on the front cover,
No,
stupid
I'm
cover.
coming up with a good blurb for him. You know, but
That's
stupid cover will not be it. But
now if the wrong
Brilliant.
person sees this on social media, fuck these guys.
Yeah. Oh boy,
Brendan, what are you reading?
we're in trouble. You know what? Just this afternoon, I finished reading Clickers 2 by
nice.
Brian Keene and J.F. Gonzalez, and the best blurb. Well, first of all, it's a cool cover, but the best thing I can say about it is I immediately picked up 3 and started that. So that's what I'm currently reading is Clickers 3, Dagon Rising.
well, there you go. I mean, there's a great thing. You know, I just went to the next book because I couldn't wait.
Well, and you know, I've been reading. I've been trying to work through Brian Keene's catalog this year, which is no small feat. I had picked up Clickers by J.F. Gonzalez, and I think it's Mark Williams, and it was fine. It's entertaining. It's big old crabs come and tear people apart. Cool. I'm down for it. But the way that Keene and Gonzalez work together versus the original 2 authors, it's next level. You know, there's a huge progression between the first one and the second one, and I tore through it. And you know, I'm already a couple chapters into 3, and it's got that same kinship that those 2 share. They knew how to write together, like no question.
Well, you know, Brian always has a great narrative sense, and he's taken over the boot camp from Tom Montaglione, and
I read that,
and I think he and Mary will do a great job because, you know, first of all, he's a very organized guy. Second of all, you know, he's very articulate about, you know, writing and stuff, and he's been in and out of the boot camp, you know, helping us and you know, talking to people and so on. So he knows the whole procedure, and we've had tremendous success with the boot camp. And just Tom and I, we were just down there in February, and I looked at Tom and said, I think this might be my last. He said, you know what? I think it might be mine too. Let's pass it on. And then Brian showed up and said, "There's the guy. He'll take care of it." And Brian
he didn't even want it. You just gave it to him.
I mean, we said, would you be interested? Would you take over? He said, "I'd love to." So
that's really cool.
How much is that? Do you know how much it costs to go there?
No. Tom is in charge of all that stuff. I'm a hireling, but I've been there since day one. So I sort of consider it mine too. But he runs all the things. I have no idea what he charges, but it should be on the website.
Okay, that's in PA, right?
No, it's been in Baltimore.
Oh, somebody said that was in Pennsylvania.
He might, Brian might move it up to Hunt Valley. For I mean, we found a good cheap hotel in Baltimore, so that people didn't have to spend too much money to stay there.
Makes sense.
But it's been taken over by Comfort Suites, and it's under, they're renovating everything. It's a mess right now. So I don't know what Brian's going to do, but it's up to him.
That's his problem now.
Yeah.
So I am reading Anybody Home by Michael J. Seidlinger. It's a home invasion book, but it's basically funny. We're talking about passing things on to the next generation. It's seasoned people that break into homes, and there's younger guys that are taught it, and they're they're recording pretty much all of this. And I just dove into this. Oh, excuse me. My turn. It's really cool. I like it a lot. It's just a smooth read. And there's a lot of people that their opinion weighs heavy on, like, if I were to open up to a new author, and Michael's a new author for me, and I like it. Clash Books is a publisher that has a lot of neat books. They're always different. They're always weird in a good way, in my opinion. So worth checking out if you're into that sort of thing. Brent, take over. I need a drink.
Yeah, the home invasion is sort of a subgenre, especially in movies. Have you seen You're Next?
I haven't seen that yet, but it looks good.
No.
Oh, it's older. I think it's like 10, might be 10 years old by now, but there's such a nice twist in it. There's a death by food processor that I really love.
That'd be a cool title. Where can people follow you?
I'm sorry?
Where can people follow you?
Oh, repairmanjack.com. I have a monthly newsletter, which I haven't put out yet this month because I went to AuthorCon.
Oh, how was that?
Oh, that was great. It's amazing how many self-published authors are out there, and they are doing well. It's really good. Twitter, I'm at F. Paul Wilson, and I think I'm the real F. Paul Wilson on Facebook. I had to switch from my old thing, and it was, Facebook is so screwed up. But anyway, I think I'm the real F. Paul Wilson on Facebook. So follow me there. I don't post a whole lot. When I find something interesting, I'll post it, and sometimes when I have a new book, I'll annoy the hell out of you for a while. But basically, I follow other people and check them out. So
nice. Do you have any final thoughts?
No.
Brennan,
my head is empty. I've been DVRing BattleBots because that's one of my guilty pleasures, is watching these little machines beat the crap out of each other. And I love the people who do this. I mean, my favorite is Witch Doctor, which and one of their chief designers, she does prosthetic limbs, for all the, so she knows all the mechanical stuff and all that kind of thing. And so she puts that, I guess, into her little robot. And they've been winning stuff where they shouldn't win. So I've been following them. But it's that's one of my guilty pleasures. The other one is, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, where I look at food porn.
Yeah, Guy Fieri's awesome. Brennan, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just thinking about Guy Fieri now. I'll bet he's eating something so delicious right now.
Yeah, whenever I've been to a few restaurants that had him visit, and whenever it says like this is his choice, however it's worded, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting that. I want to try that. I mean, I have seen in Providence where it was like something. It was like spaghetti meatballs, but he approved of it, so I'm like, I'm gonna try that.
No matter what it is, it's gonna be out of bounds.
Yeah.
So my final thoughts are, Paul, we really appreciate you spending Thursday night with us. Really appreciate your time. To have an author.
It's fun. You guys are fun to talk to.
That's what we always hope for. That you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, when are they going to let me go? But we always appreciate.
Thunder, we have thunderstorm outside now. All of a sudden, here in
well, that's ominous.
Here at the Jersey Shore.
Yep.
Do you have it too? Sorry, I'm not in New Jersey, so
it's pouring down hard, man.
Where are you? Patrick.
I'm in Atlantic County.
So you're south of me. I'm in Monmouth.
Yeah, I'll tell you when we're done recording what town. I just, you never know what kind of person's listening. So Oh, Brennan, I thought you were gonna pick up. Okay, so that was an awkward pause. My final thoughts are: it was really fun talking to you, Paul, and I just appreciate your time.
Is there anything else you want me to say?
No, nothing in particular.
Okay.
Next step. My God, my throat is so dry. Allergies are killing me. Next episode is 143 with the co-founder of Death's Head Press, Patrick C. Harrison III. Stay tuned for that. And listeners, as always, you have many choices in podcasts. Thank you for picking us.